Hello, everyone. My name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we're going to be talking about one of my most favorite movies of 2017 so far, A Ghost Story. Absolutely love it. So, this is a spoiler filled review of it. Can't wait to talk about this. Very excited. A Ghost Story. I love this movie so much, man. I can't wait to watch this multiple times in the theater, at least 10 more times. Fantastic movie. Let's just get right into it. All right. So this movie opens. It's a very slow movie. I would say like the pace in this movie is extremely slow, but it's absolutely necessary because it gets you sucked into this world towards like when you first meet Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara's character. You see them together and it's like, okay, they're laying on the sofa. She's talking about these notes that she used to leave, leave a piece of herself behind. And then it's like Paranormal Activity, where it's like, okay, Casey Affleck looks off in the distance and you see like this piece of light. So rationally, you may think, oh, yeah, it's just some reflection off of something and it's in the corner. But this movie's called A Ghost Story, so it's not that simple. It's a spirit, most likely. Okay, fantastic. Then you move on, and then, you see a scene where it's like they're talking about this piano and they're sleeping. And this is just like first Paranormal Activity movie. They hear noises in their house that will bump in the night. So they investigate and it's nothing. And then, she's like moving the piano outside, moving all this stuff. And then, he's doing his thing, with the music and stuff that he creates. And then, she's like focused on leaving. And I don't think he wants to leave because it's like, he's like, oh, this place has a sense of history. Like something's keeping him there. So then you move on and he's dead. And the thing that kind of baffled me with his death, where it's like, okay, funny enough though, before I watched the movie, I was on my way to the theater going to watch it. And then I said to myself, okay, he's going to die, obviously. But how is he going to die? Is he going to get mugged? Is he going to die, from cancer or something like that? And immediately I said, no, I think the best thing would be a car accident because he would be taken from her in a way to where it's like, yeah, you're not, something that's extremely like just pulls on your heart and it's like, oh, it's so fucked up. Why did that happen? Something that happens to normal people every day, and it's mostly someone's fault, but you never really know depending on circumstances, with the individual person. But when I looked at, I just was like, okay, car accident would be great. It would be dramatic, but not like extremely like like heart, like just I don't know what the word is. It's like something extremely like dramatic, something that's dramatic enough to not being too overbearing. So then it's just like, but when I looked at the scene in the car accident, I felt his death immediately because he looked dead. I know it's Casey Affleck in the movie, but he looked dead. Like the way they shot it is fantastic. But then I was like, that road is so small and there are no cars out there. How the hell did they collide? The movie doesn't explain that. I wish they would have like at least one scene where it's like, how the road that small and no one's out there, and how did that happen? Like, I guess someone must have been drunk, something. I don't know. I'm being judgmental. That's the way I look at it. Something. This road's so small. How did that happen? But then he's dead. And there's this fantastic scene in this movie where it's so freaking good. It's like a horror movie, man. Like it has sprinkles of horror in here, and I think it's some of the best horror stuff I've seen in a long time. Like I don't even remember the last good horror movie I saw, to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen some decent ones, stuff that was okay, but nothing like truly, absolutely terrifying. Just like when I saw the first Candyman movie, truly terrified me. With the music and the images, all that stuff like that. And it's a little cheesy, but Candyman's a really good movie. Sequels suck, but it's like you watch A Ghost Story, and it's like, okay, it's a fantastic scene where it's like he's laid out on the I don't know what you call it, but he's laid out on the table and, he's in the morgue. Rooney Mara's staring at him. You can see the pain in her body. Like, she's not sobbing like, ooh, he's dead. She's just like, really long, drawn out scenes. Fantastic. Because I love these drawn out scenes because it makes you pay attention to the screen, look at the individual, look at the character, study their body language, look at their eyes, look at their facial expressions, see how heavily they're breathing. it's fantastic because then with that alone, you can understand how they feel. They don't need to talk about it with dialogue and explain it to the audience like we're dumb. You just watch it and you're just like, I understand how she feels. I can feel that whether you've been through it or not. Fantastic. But the sprinkles of horror in here. She puts the sheet over him. She walks away. Long drawn shot. Nothing. I don't see anything yet. He's going to move. He's going to move. What's happening? What am I supposed to look at? Holy shit, he moved! Holy shit, he fucking moves. He's so fucking scary. And then the music coming into play with that's fantastic. He sits up straight. He sits upright like Michael Myers from Halloween. And him having that sheet, but even though it's just holes and he doesn't have glasses, it reminded me of Michael Myers from John Carpenter's Halloween. It's fantastic. So it has sprinkles of horror in here. Then he's walking down the hallway and it's like dark and this really creepy music's playing and I was legitimately terrified. I was scared. Like, it's like a horror movie. He's in a sheet and he's dead and he just sits up. But I understood it. Not only is it just like sprinkles of horror, it makes sense. It's like watching the Enter the Void movie on a budget. To where it's like, in Enter the Void, you know, the guy's dead and you see his spirit floating around above people. Whereas in this, they don't have that. Where it's just like, okay, he's dead in reality. But then in spiritual realm, it picture like his body laying on the table and then all of a sudden you see his spirit come out of his body, where it would have been just like him coming from up from the sheet and like, you know, some glowy form of himself, and then he's walking around. It could have been like some cheesy shit, but it was so effective that way with like the sheet, because it's like he sits up and you're just like immediately, okay, that's his spirit. His body's still laying on the table, we just don't see that. You think in your head, okay, that's his spirit coming up into, you know, he's a ghost now, literally. It shows you like, oh, he's got a sheet on. But when you think about it, no, that's his spirit. And it makes perfect sense. I love it so much. It makes perfect, and it's the easiest way to do it because you see what happens prior. So he sits up, you're like, oh, they're not using some cheap CGI effects to make it seem like a ghost or anything, to make it look like a ghost or anything like that. They're just using something that is completely simple and it makes sense when you just make it fucking perfect. Then he sits up and he walks around, and then the best thing in this movie is when he sees this wall and it opens and there's a beam of light. And now most people, I've studied near-death experiences, and it's just like a lot of people, you know, say I see a white light and stuff, or it's dark and whatever. But this, it's like what the people, when they see the white light, you can go to heaven. He was going to go to heaven, but he rejected it, so it closed and he stayed on earth. It's like they say spiritually, whether if you believe that or not, where it's like a soul when they die. When a person dies, when a physical body dies, the soul of the person comes out. It's your inner self. It's the real you. It's not this vessel that you are currently operating. So your spirit self comes out and you're dead and you see everything and you see the real world from a different perspective, because now you're just a spirit. Other people can't see you. Your physical body's gone. Now you're just a spirit form. And the movie did it perfectly with the sheet. They didn't go over the top with it with like, you know, digital effects, all that stuff. So he's walking around as a spirit, but you see a sheep, but it's great. And he's walking around and the door opens and he rejects heaven because he wants to stay behind. He stays behind for his girlfriend, Rooney Mara. And then everything with her, like I said, if there's no competition in 2017 by the end of this year, as far as like really great performances, or if Meryl Streep is in another movie, she's great, but she gets nominated all the time. I like Meryl Streep, she's great. But, you know, if there's no competition, then I think Rooney Mara should definitely be nominated, because the way she acts in this movie, like my other favorite scene in here is when you see Rooney, there's a scene, it's fantastic, it all makes sense. It's like, okay, you got this one character who comes in, I forgot who she was, but she comes in and into Rooney Mara's house and writes a note and leaves some pie. Then she leaves, and then you see Casey Affleck's ghost. I don't know if it's Casey Affleck behind the sheet, but you see the spirit standing in the room, and then the lady leaves, and then Rooney Mara comes home and sees the note and then throws it in the trash. Right? She throws it in the trash, grabs the pie, sets it on the table. It's got aluminum foil over the top of it. Rooney Mara goes to the sink, then she turns around and stares at the pie. Then she takes the tinfoil off, and looks at the pie. Then she decides to eat the pie, so she's like, okay. And then I laughed at that moment, and to me, that felt like a comedic moment. That wasn't forceful. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna crack a joke, and hopefully you laugh because the joke is supposed to be funny. It's intentional. I want, kind of like when you watch a sitcom and they have that computer clapping on there where it's like, is it really a studio audience or is it just like some piece of technology that you're using? I don't know. But they don't do that here. It's just like you look at it and you can tell that it's a comedic moment. I don't know if that's what they were aiming for, but that's what it feels like to me, because she threw the lady's note in the garbage where she's like, I don't give a fuck about you. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm grieving right now. But you know what? I'll eat your pie. Fuck you, but I'll eat your pie. And that's why I thought it was funny, because she starts eating the pie. And then she starts eating it. She's like, I don't know, I should eat it. And she starts eating it, and she's like, this fantastic expressions on her face. She's like, and then she starts eating more and more and more. And it's just like, it went on forever, but it's fantastic because at first it's funny. She threw the lady's note in the trash, like, I don't give a fuck about you, but I'm eating this pie. And then she just, then it becomes less funny. Like, this movie, to me, it has moments of light in there, where it's like, this is a really good scene, and it's really making me like emotionally filled with happiness. But then they always go right back to something that's really sad and dramatic, and just like, oh, thank you for just crushing my spirit. I was all excited, now you just crushed me. And they do it with this. She eats the pie, it's funny at first, then she starts binge eating it because she's grieving and she's suffering internally, and she just eats it and eats it and eats it. Like when people get depressed, most people eat a lot. And so it's like, then it's just dramatic. Then she sits on the floor and eats it some more. And it went on forever. It went on a little bit too long, maybe a couple seconds, because at a point I was just like, get some water, get some milk or something. I don't know. But then she gets sick and then she throws up. And it's a fantastic scene, one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And then you got Casey Affleck and he's going around. And then there's a fucking other fantastic scene where it's like you see Rooney Mara listening to music, and it's fantastic because then it shows the relationship even more, and you feel the relationship is so beautiful. Because then it goes back to Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara talking. Casey Affleck's doing his job with music; he's a singer or something, I guess. And then she's like asking him a question, and I love the way it starts because like you don't know what they're talking about at first, but then you get it, and it gives them a sense of humanity where it's like she's like, yeah, you know, let me listen to it or something. And he's like, no. And he's kind of nervous because you can tell, yeah, you know, how most people are of their work. It's like, you know, I like doing it, but, you know, we're our own worst critics when, you know, we're artists and we're doing something. It's like we judge our stuff more than any other person can judge us. You know, we're always like, it's got to be perfect. And if you listen to it, I'm nervous about how you'll react to it. So, but he, you know, it's like, okay, I'll let you listen to it. She listens to it, and then you can see on her face where it's like she's like you're listening to a new piece of music for the first time, and you're just like, I'm not sure if I like this, but I'll give it a shot. You're listening to it, you're like, okay, give this a chance. Okay, it's not that bad. Okay, this is kind of good. It was fantastic, and that's how she reacted, and it was fucking perfect. And then so it's like she loves this song so much that this is what she remembers him by. So like I said, this is what I mean, where it's like it shows you really light stuff that you're just like, I'm in love with that. It is beautiful. She's listening to his music, it's great, she likes it. He was a little nervous, but then he's calming down because she likes it, so he's happy that she likes it. They're both happy, they're vibing. Then it goes her laying on the damn floor listening to the song, and he's standing there in the spirit form, and she's just stretched out. And it's a really depressing scene because then she's using something to keep him around. And he, you know, and he's trying to comfort her, and then goes back and forth. It's fantastic. And then there's another beautiful scene. She's laying in the bed, and he sits down next to her, and he's rubbing her, all this stuff. But then I think that what it means is that she built enough courage to move on. Where she at first was depressed and looking at life as being very dreadful because something that meant so much to her, something that she cherished, was taken away from her. And then so she listens to this music, and it's so good and profound, it touches her because it's like it means something to her emotionally. But then I think it gave her the courage to move on. She finally moves out of the house, and there's a really beautiful shot where she's in the car, she's driving, and you look at her face. You can tell that she's nervous, like new roads ahead, things in the rearview mirror in the past, but they're still with me. I won't forget them. And the future is bright and hopeful no matter what dramatic thing may have happened in the past. The future is always there, and there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So her character's gone, perfect arc, fantastic. We don't see her for the pretty much the rest of the movie, except like in some flashback scenes where we'll get to. So then it's like Casey Affleck stuck at the house, and there's another kind of creepy scene where he looks out the window and he sees another ghost that lives next door. It's a really creepy scene, like sprinkles of horror, fantastic. They wave at each other, there's subtitles, they're talking to each other because they can't speak because they got the sheet on. It's their spirit form, and it was really sad because he's like, I'm waiting for someone, but I don't know if they're coming back. And it's like, okay. And I remember watching like some stuff on the History Channel where they say, okay, this guy committed suicide. He hung himself in a closet. And then like the people that moved in always heard these noises in the closet and stuff. So it's like if a person dies, their spirit gets left behind in a place that meant the most to them or something like that. And so it's like they constantly live there. And that's another thing I love about this movie is that I think he's stuck at the house because then a new family moves, a family moves into the house, and he's pissed about that. And another thing I love about this movie is that his energy, the movie showed you when his energy was strong because his spirit and his energy messed with electricity. So then it's just like horror movie. It's just like the first Paranormal Activity movie if it had more depth and more layers and more story and more humanity to it and wasn't so like Hollywood cliche. But I still love first Paranormal Activity movie. I don't care what anyone says. Sequel sucked though. But this is awesome. So it's like family moves in and then he starts terrorizing them. So then it's like you have people. It also has another element in there where it's like you have people who always claim, oh, I saw paranormal, supernatural stuff happen, but no one believes them. So in this sense, it's like, yeah, he didn't terrorize his wife. He didn't even bother her at all, except with the book and the shelf and knocking that down. But it's like, oh, coincidence, something happened and fell on the floor. He didn't like terrorize them to a point where it's like you see stuff levitating, which fantastic scene. Family's eating dinner. He terrorizes them, opens the cabinet, picks up the plate, throws it on the floor, does this, and it's fantastic horror, man. It's like watching Paranormal Activity, but you can see what's going on and you understand what's happening to where it's like, yeah, the cup lifts up, the family's just eating, and imagine he's not even standing there, just eating. You see a cup levitate, holy crap, and he throws it, and throws the plate, and then he's angry, and the lights are flickering, all this stuff, and then there's a scene with the kid, and he's in the bed, and then it's like the door opens, you see his ghost standing there, and then I think there was a noise, and the girl runs out screaming, and the boy, it's a funny scene, pulls out a little toy gun, all this stuff, the family moves out. Great scene, fantastic, sprinkles of horror. It was really great. I understood it. It made sense. I believed it. It felt me. It felt real. And here, I loved it. It's fantastic because it has multiple layers to it. It's fantastic. And then you move on, and he stays in the house. But before Rooney Mara left, she wrote a note and stuck it in the wall. Like at the beginning of the movie, they explain how she leaves pieces of herself behind. She stuck it in this wall, and then I don't know what she did. I guess she cemented it or whatever and stuck in there, and he's picking at it, trying to get it out. People come in, bulldoze the house. Now it's scrapped. You move way into the future. Doesn't really tell you what year, but it's way into the future. He's stuck there, and like they changed the whole area now. Now it's like a downtown area. It's like neon lights. Kind of looks like Shanghai mixed with New York City, and it's just like all this light. He's in this office, this office skyscraper building now. And he's walking around, and it's really cool to look at. And then like he there's a scene where it's like, okay, I guess the spirit can choose to stay or leave, because when he looks at before all that stuff, he looks at the house next door and sees the ghost in there. And then the ghost is like, oh, I'm going to leave now. And then the sheet just kind of like what they did in, I think the third Paranormal Activity movie where you see the sheet and it comes down. Same thing like that, but it was better. It was better in this movie. And then, so it's like that happened. So it's like, but he still stays behind because I guess he's trying to get the note. So then you go into the future, and then you see all this stuff, and then he jumps off the roof, commits suicide or something. And this is where the movie got a little strange, because then it goes all the way back in time to like the settlers area. I don't know. It goes all the way back in time. I'm not really that smart, but whatever. So it's like it goes back to this particular period in time. And then I looked at the scene as like confusing, but then I was like, well, maybe this is their past life, because most people do believe in that. So I was like, okay, because you see this little girl, and she writes this note just like Rooney Mara's character and sticks it under a rock. So maybe that's her character. Maybe that's her past life. Because then they die. They get shot with these arrows and they're dead. And Casey Affleck, or the ghost with the sheet, is watching and they're dead. And then they really focus on the man, the daughter's father. They really focus on him a lot. And I'm like, maybe that was Casey Affleck. Maybe Casey Affleck in the past life was Rooney Mara's father. So that was an intriguing idea. So I was like, what was going on? And then you fast forward a little bit more, and then you see Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. So the spirit is watching his life flashed before him, seeing his past life and then his life that he had that he remembered, and the reason why he's staying behind as a spirit. So then he sees all this, and then it's kind of what Christopher Nolan did with Interstellar, where it's like Matthew McConaughey was Murphy's ghost, and so it's just like they do that, and then they explain the whole piano thing, and then the spirit. It's kind of confusing because it's like, all right, so he saw himself, and he did all this in a loop, and it's just like he was his own ghost or something, or there's someone else there because he sees his ghost. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. It's still kind of confusing, but I liked it because then it's like they show you all this stuff, what you've already seen, but from his perspective of him watching his own life unfold. Then it's like he dies, all this stuff happens again, but then he goes back to the note, and this time the house isn't demolished. So then he's picking at it, pulls it out, opens it, falls. And then I think that was the end of the movie, I think. And it made sense. We don't know what the note said. It probably was something so profound that he just was like, okay, I'm ready to go now. Or maybe he's just like, I got to get to it before I go. I don't know, but I liked it. I got to watch this movie again. And there's another really good scene before we wrap all this up. There's another really good scene to where there's a guy who is at this party. And this is like really the biggest scene of dialogue in this movie. And this is the only really kind of important scene of dialogue in this movie because it goes on a little too long, but it's really profound and it sums the whole movie up and the meaning of life, depending on what you believe in. So it's like, you know, this guy, they're at a party, he's drinking, he's talking to these girls, maybe he's trying to impress them, but then, you know, he's like one of those dumb people where it's like, yeah, he says a word that he probably doesn't understand because he can't really like pronounce it correctly. But I would say no, he knows what it means, he just can't pronounce it correctly, so he's kind of like this drunk dumb dude if you judge him from a surface level. But then if you really look at him and listen to what he has to say and learn his inner self, he's a philosopher, man. He has it all figured out. He's not as lost as you may think. So it's like he's talking and he's like explaining the meaning of life, and it's like fuck money, it's all about experiences, whatever. I can't remember exactly what he said, but when I was watching the scene, it touched me in the feels. And I guess you could say it's a little bit too forceful because it goes on forever. The guy keeps talking, you're like, I get what you're saying, so please wrap it up. But it made sense because then it touched Casey Affleck's character. It was like his energy rose and it touched all the electricity, and you see the lights flickering and all that stuff. When you see the lights, him affecting electricity to when his spirit, his energy was like really high, and you would see all the electricity and the static, all that stuff, and the flickering of the lights. It's fantastic. So he felt that moment. Maybe it was a little too forceful because it's like, okay, I get it. Then they had to do the flickering lights where it's like, you got to feel this. You're going to kind of forced it a little bit, but I still thought it was profound and I enjoyed it. Anyway, that's it. Absolutely love A Ghost Story. I'm going to watch it 10 more times. It is fantastic. Best movie this year. Almost knocked Under the Skin, which is my favorite movie of all time, out of its number one spot. But I still think Under the Skin is a better movie. I would put A Ghost Story in my top 10. But I have to watch it some more to really, truly consider that, because I think my top 10 is absolutely solid. And these movies really affect me emotionally, because when I thought about it, I was like, what would I knock out to put A Ghost Story in there? I have to take something out of there. I'm not taking Under the Skin out. I'm not taking Swingers out. I'm not taking Blair Witch, because these movies mean something to me. So which one would I take out? It's a tough decision, but we'll find out. But yeah, Ghost Story, if you haven't seen it, well, you shouldn't have watched this, but you did if you're listening to this right now. Good movie, best movie of the year. Tell me what you think. That's it. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Great movie.